Today I'd like to continue our journey through the book of Exodus. We've reached chapter 22, which is an interesting section of different laws that are given to guide the Jewish people. And you can see from this the importance of law for the people. And the idea was that it made them cohesive as a people. It gave them that sense of unity, the sense of how we can all work together and what we can support. It also gave them a sense of community. And so it was very important in their lives. In chapter 22, we see them talking about what happens if a thief is caught. And it's interesting, if a thief is caught in the act, he is beaten to death. There's no guilt. So if you catch a thief and you beat him to death, normally, of course, that's killing somebody, but he was a thief, and so there's no guilt. No trial, no judgment, nothing of that nature. However, there is guilt if this happens, after, when there is light, because he should be able to catch the thief during the daylight. So if this happens and the sunrise and it's light and you catch the thief, well, you see him. And therefore, you should not beat the person to death because you see what's happening, and you should be able to deal with the fact of what he is stealing. But if it's during the night, it's a different story because you don't know what that intruder is doing, and could he be attacking you? And so there is no guilt if you do kill him. The person who is caught, though, when it is after sunrise, that person must make full restitution. If he has nothing, though, to make restitution, he is sold to pay for his theft. So he can be sold into slavery. A price is given, and that would be, of course, the restitution for the person. If what he has stole is found alive in his possession, say like a sheep or an ox, he has to restore two animals for each one he has taken. So again, it would be a deterrent effect. So he's not just giving the one animal back, he has stolen something, he has to give two back. If a man is burning his field and the fire spreads to his neighbor's field, he must make restitution with the best produce of his own field or vineyard. So he must take what's best from his field and give it back, which makes sense because he's been involved in this incident where the field has been burned. If the fire is more extensive, the one who started the fire must make a full entire restitution. So it would warn the person that if there is some burning going on in your field, sometimes to enrich the soil, it's burnt in terms of a rotation of a field. Well, you have to be very careful not to harm your neighbor. When someone gives money or some article to a person to store it at his house, and it is stolen, the thief, if caught, must make full restitution. This was done on a regular basis by shepherds because shepherds would have to be away from their home for a while. So they would give articles to their neighbors for safekeeping, obviously. And if they get back and it's not there, well, full restitution must be made for those articles. If the thief is not caught, the owner of the house is brought to God, basically to the sanctuary, to the judges. The idea of being brought to God would be brought before a higher authority to judge the situation and to swear that he did not take those articles himself. If there is a dispute about who owns an item, the case is brought to God, again to the judges, and the one whom God convicts must make a twofold restitution to the other. So when all the evidence is evaluated, the judges look at it, they've been brought to God, they must make a twofold restitution. Again, similar to with the animals, where you take one, you must pay back two. And again, you can see the deterrent value in terms of that. If someone is watching an animal and it is stolen, or say the animal is hurt, the one who is watching it must swear by the Lord that he did not harm it. And then no restitution is made because he has sworn to the Lord. If he is guilty, though, of harming the animal, if he himself harmed it in some way, he must make restitution. If killed by an animal, say the animal you were watching was killed by the animal, he can bring the animal, and no restitution has to be made. So the animal was killed, he brings the animal, it was killed by another animal, and so no restitution. You can understand in some cases you're trying to watch the animal, but another animal kills it, and in that case, no restitution would have to be made. If a man borrows an animal from his neighbor, and that animal is maimed or dies while the owner is not present, the man must make restitution because he wasn't present. If the owner is present, there is no restitution. If it was hired, it is covered by the price of the hire. So if you hired that animal out, then that price would cover the cost, obviously, of the animal. Now we get into more a sense of a personal morality. If a man seduces a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall pay her marriage price and marry her. If the father refuses to give her to him, he must still pay him the customary price for virgins, which was at that time 50 shekels. A father would get a higher price for his daughter if she was a virgin. So this was an economic arrangement. You would pay the father of the bride a certain amount, and so if you seduced a virgin, she could not be given in marriage and get the same price. So the idea was that you would have to make up that price for the father. Sorcerers must be killed. Basically, that would apply to a certain type of sorcerer who would have a spell that would do harm to others. So there were different levels of being a sorcerer, but there were some who would try to have these spells that would harm others. So those sorcerers must be killed. If someone has sex with an animal, they are to be killed. This was found in the Near East, especially in Egypt and Canaan. So to discourage this, that person would be killed. If someone sacrifices to another god, other than the God of Israel, they are doomed. Aliens should not be molested or oppressed. Aliens had to leave their homes really due to war, plague, famine, or blood guilt. So they were leaving from a very difficult situation, and they would be the sense of welcomed because of the harm that they would be fleeing. So they shouldn't be molested, they shouldn't be oppressed, they shouldn't be taken advantage of. And widows and orphans would be another protected class. Widows and orphans should not be wronged, and if they were wronged, that was a very bad situation. If you wrong a widow or an orphan, God will kill you with the sword, and your own wives will be widows, and your own children will be orphans. So the idea was if you don't really protect the widow or orphan, then your own wife, your own children will suffer the consequences of that. So the idea was let's treat the widows, let's treat the orphans in a special way, let's help them. And the prophets always made a mention of this in their prophecies, that the sign of Israel being faithful to the covenant was actually how they took care of the aliens, how they took care of the widows, how they took care of the orphans. Much like in our own society, we try to have that sense of really special care for those who have those needs. If you lend money to the poor, do not charge interest. Interest was allowed to be charged on a foreigner and in certain situations, but to the poor, of course, no interest to them because you're trying to help them out. If you take your neighbor's cloak as a pledge, it should be returned before sunset because it will be used to cover his body at night. So you take the cloak, if there's an arrangement where you're borrowing and the cloak is kind of like a collateral, it should be returned at night so the person could sleep comfortably and not be cold at night. The Lord hears the cry of those who are poor and oppressed because the Lord is a Lord of compassion. So this was continually stressed in the law, that those who are poor, those who are oppressed, we have a special obligation to them because the Lord hears them. The Lord is a compassionate Lord. The Lord wants them to experience love and joy and happiness as well, and they need special protection, special care. You should not revile God. Again, that sense of the importance of God and love for God. You should not curse the princes. The princes were also a chief of a tribe, a deputy, or a spokesperson, probably really the head of one of the tribes. So again, this respect for authority. You should not delay the harvest offerings. Harvest offerings, of course, very important. You should do those immediately as a sign of thanksgiving to God. You shall give your firstborn son to God in a special way, consecrate that son to God, because that son is special and they should be given to God, dedicated to God. Um, you shall give your firstborn of your ox and your sheep to God. Again, the sense of the firstborn, the importance of the firstborn, even among the animals. The firstborn shall be given to God on which day? On the eighth day. So that was that sign that on the eighth day they will be dedicated to God. The people will be sacred to God. So the sense now, even in the law, the sense of the specialness of God, the special relationship to God, that idea of God being sacred, and the people also being sacred to God, this mutuality of relationship comes out. Any pieces of flesh that are found in the field will be given to the dogs, and that was because blood could not be drained properly from these animals, and there was a sense of not to consume the blood. So what we can see in these laws is that sense of relationship, God caring for the people, and the people then caring for God, making God sacred, just as the people are sacred to God. And of course, who was the first one who entered into that special, intimate, sacred relationship with God? It was our own Father Abraham. And as we know, Father Abraham had many friends. Many friends had Father Abraham. I am one of them, and so are you. So let's all praise the Lord. Keep on praising the Lord, and God bless.